I think we shouldn't underestimate the Iranian capability. We shouldn't also pretend that they're 12 feet tall. They're demonstrably not. Their stockpiles have been lessened by their support for Putin in Ukraine. So what they might have been able to do 18 months ago, they're less able to do now. But I just worry that because Iran has proven to be a little bit more toothless than I think people would have assumed in what we've seen over the last 9 months, that we might undervalue what they could do if they really wanted to. In Saudi, in Egypt, in Israel, and indeed in Lebanon, where I went on government business, our opinion matters, and we are regarded as knowing what we're talking about. I think, however, if the thrust of your question is the UK in a position to stop Netanyahu from doing what he's doing? Clearly not. Is the UK the key player in facilitating talks that avoid any sort of escalation pathway? No, that sits with the United States. But that doesn't mean that the UK hasn't got a role in the margins.
Well, Britain and other allies, above all America, have been calling for a ceasefire. Was Israel right to ignore these calls?
I'm concerned. I understand. I thought Sam's analysis just now was pretty spot on in terms of what is going on and what could come next. But I'm still nervous that whilst the most likely course of action is, as Sam describes, the worst course of action is an uncontrolled escalation trajectory that could be that could drag the UK and other European countries into a regional conflict, and that concerns me enormously. So I'm a supporter of Israel's. I understand their need to secure their borders, and I understand the threat that Hezbollah poses from southern Lebanon, and that they've had enough of that. But I am very concerned that whilst I think Sam is probably right, that Iran thus far has proven to be all mouth, no trousers, and is likely to continue to be so, there is a version of this that is horribly different.
But what is that version?
Well, an uncontrolled escalation pathway that sees Iran directly enter the war in some way.
But how would it do? How would it do that? How would Iran do that? It's 1,000 miles away from.
Light up their proxies being the most obvious, but I.
Well, they've done that.
Well,
they've done that. They've lit up the. They've lit up Hamas. They've lit up Hezbollah. They're not that many.
I don't think we've seen the proxies lit up in all of their potential ferocity. I think we've seen plenty, but I think that there is an even worse version of events. And I do think that Iran, if Iran wanted to become more belligerent as an actor in its own right, has got cards that it could play. And I think
would these cards be?
And I think the Israeli
play.
Well, and I think Israel, in the mood that it is in, would respond pretty aggressively. And I think that people like the UK.
What would these cards be? I think we can agree it couldn't send a land army to Israel, right?
No. I mean, I think we're talking about.
It couldn't take. It can't take control of the skies. Its air force is ancient.
Well,
correct?
I think we're talking about complex long-range air attacks, such as the one that we saw a few months ago and that was repelled. But there is a version of that I think could be more complex, more challenging to air defense, and more demanding of Israel and its allies to defeat, to avoid it hitting any targets. So I think we shouldn't underestimate the Iranian capability. We shouldn't also pretend that they're 12 feet tall. They're demonstrably not. Their stockpiles have been lessened by their support for Putin in Ukraine. So what they might have been able to do 18 months ago, they're less able to do now. But I just worry that because Iran has proven to be a little bit more toothless than I think people would have assumed in what we've seen over the last 9 months, that we might undervalue what they could do if they really wanted to.
I mean, I think that there's a mood of fear among the proxies that Iran is prepared to wage a war until the last proxy dies. And the mood of fear in Tehran is that if Israel can take out Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, who can't they take out in Tehran itself? I mean, I think they're feeling a little worried at the moment, I would suggest.
I was nodding vigorously when I heard Sam say that just now. I think that's a very good point. And I think people misunderstand that, or not misunderstand, that's the wrong way of putting it, but underprice the cognitive effect on decision makers in time of war, where, back in the kind of corridors of power, you can feel quite closeted and safe. But the moment that you start to feel that actually you're next on the block too, not just those of the military thousands of miles away, or in Iran's case, their proxies and the IRGC, all of a sudden you can start to view situations very differently. And so the cognitive effect of the killing of the leader of Hezbollah in Tehran is profound on the wider Iranian system, and may mean that once again they sort of choose to let discretion be the better part of valor when it comes to this is fundamentally what they've been planning for a generation in developing all of these proxies, and the moment's come and the dog hasn't barked.
If Israel is attacked by Iran, and you've mentioned that, and of course that cannot be ruled out in some form, Iran did attack Israel in April. Should we come to Israel's defense along with our other allies as we did in April?
Yeah, we should. I mean, look, there's two versions of that question, though, Andrew. Should we do everything we can alongside the US, France, the Jordanians, the Saudis, to stop an inbound complex air attack landing on Israeli soil with all the risk that Netanyahu would just respond immediately and aggressively with no recourse to any sort of diplomacy internationally? Obviously. And that was, I think I was quite keen to point out when that happened earlier in the year, that wasn't really about the UK, the US, Jordan, and Saudi defending Israel. That was about them intervening to stop something that could unleash uncontrolled escalation. If one of those missiles had landed, Israel had responded in kind, and then we were into a regional conflict, different question about the degree to which the UK and other allies should then get involved. And my sense is that that's an incredibly difficult decision to make. I certainly would not fancy being in the NSC, in the National Security Council meeting when those decisions are being taken. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
I can understand difficult decisions. One final quick question for you before we let you go. A contender for your party's leadership, Robert Jenrick, has claimed that the European Charter of Human Rights means the British Special Forces are killing rather than capturing terrorists. His words. Is that right?
No. No, I mean, I've not heard Rob say that.
Yes.
Well, Andrew, I know a journalist of your authority wouldn't dare say anything on air unless they're absolutely certain it was true. I just haven't heard him say. If that is what he said, there's no way that is the case. It is, and in fact, to arbitrarily kill when the opportunity for capture is there is exactly the sort of scenario that has caused this inquiry that's ongoing at the moment with regards to Afghanistan. I just don't recognise where Rob's coming from with those comments, I'm afraid.